record?
Yeah, it didn't pop up that it was recording.
Oh, we're recording?
We're recording.
Okay, I did.
All right, there it is.
Slight
Okay.
delay.
Okay, so we're good? We're back on?
We're back.
Okay. All right, we'll come out of recess then. This is Sonoma County Budget Committee, Friday, January 6, 2023. It's now 2:13. So we've had some technical issues today, both with the compensation committee prior to this meeting and then early on with this meeting, but I believe they appear to be settled, and we hope so, because these are the people who spend $150 million of your money. We want to be sure we get it into the public correctly. So with that, I'll mention again what I mentioned earlier. The compensation committee, which reviews the salaries and compensation packages of elected officials, met earlier today, but apparently there were some technical difficulties and not everyone who wished to attend that meeting, and we're not certain if it's a public meeting or not. Legal counsel will be advising us later today. Was unable to attend, in which case we recessed. We'll reconvene that meeting at the end of this meeting and determine if we continue on or perhaps have another date in the very near future. So where we are today then, this is a mid-year review of the Tillamook County budget, and we've done that in the past 2 or 3 years. I think it started primarily when the pandemic came along and things became quite uncertain and became there was less valid information as we rolled through the year. So we began meeting at least twice a year. So that's why we're here today. So I'm going to turn it over to our budget officer and newly elected and sworn in for the second term, Sean Blanchard. And she's going to talk about the budget, both special fund and general fund, and if there's anything that this committee needs to do. And if we do, we can take actions today, recognizing that what this committee does ultimately goes to the Board of County Commissioners that has the final authority on the budget. And we're primarily today talking about the current year's budget, which is fiscal 22 and 23. So we're about halfway through the year. So with that, I'll just turn it over to our elected treasurer and budget officer.
Thank you, Chair Olson. So I handed out to you guys handouts. I'm going to share my screen so those that are online can see also. I was tasked with, from my liaison, that she, how do you share your screen?
Sometimes there's a delay.
There's just a delay. Okay. My liaison asked me to put together something for newly minted department heads, managers, those that are going to be processing their budgets this year. So I just wanted to bring this before you. This is just a quick PDF that I will be sending out to the leadership team on Monday and any of those, but I wanted you guys to see some of the processes that we're hoping to move towards. One of the biggest changes is the department head, other elected manager, meeting with their liaison and myself after the budget is done. So we're going to deeper dive into what they're requesting for this year, or excuse me, for next fiscal year. Also, I did make some changes just to the budget spreadsheets where I moved everything from the left over to the right, so you read it right across, so you don't have to keep flipping your eyes back and forth on these different columns, because I was about to go nuts doing that. But yeah, just wanted to show you that really quick so that hopefully we have some more, I want to say, concrete, in-depth information at the budget workshops this year. So I will be sending that out. Hopefully, everybody knows that.
That looks like a great process. Good job.
I agree. It'll be really helpful, especially for new directors.
Yeah. So I guess we will get into the budget update. I'll put this one on the screen.
It's there on my screen. There you go.
So this is the 2022-2023 mid-year budget report. There. Purpose, the annual mid-year budget review is an essential element in maintaining financial stability. It provides the budget committee an opportunity to review the general fund and other funds, make adjustments to achieve a more accurate budget for the current fiscal year, resulting in greater transparency. and help shape the development of next year's budget. Well, economic outlook, national economy, this came from the 2022 quarter four projections released November 2022. Oregon economists have said they're looking at a mild economic recession forecasted for 2023. Generally, Summit County kind of follows along with what the state of Oregon does, so I would think that we'd be looking at a mild one, hopefully nothing like 2008 was. Unemployment rates are projected to increase. There's inputs of recession forecasts are housing and interest rates. Our LGIP account did go up to 3.35% compared to 0.14% at the beginning of January 2022. Tillamook is considered a less volatile county for industrial exposure risk in current projections. I do want to point out our 2022 Tillamook County employee turnover rate was 26%, or 70 people. Budget adopted. My auditors have requested a 1-month extension, kind of like everybody else, at the moment due to staff shortage. New people all came in. Out of the 5 auditors we had show up, only Brad Jingenheimer, who's been here for longer than me, was the only one that returned. It was all new people, so all new questions took longer. One of them works in Florida, so it was all remote, and it's been fun. But I hope to have my audit filed before the end of January.
Yeah, because the first time you audit something, it takes a long time to figure out how everything's connected. I mean, it doubles the time for staff on their audits.
Wow. It was okay. It went as smooth as could be. So our adopted general fund beginning balance was $13.1 million. It actually came at $600,000 less than what was budgeted. Our revenue for comparing quarters 1 and 2 from last year to quarters 1 and 2 of this year, which include July through the end of December, we're down 7%. It's the lowest revenue recorded in the prior 5 years, first 2 quarters. Major contributor, and I have included the handout with the timber. Last year, in the first 2 quarters, we received $2.8 million. This year it's just $2 million. So we were right on budget as far as what I had to look at my crystal ball and predict we would get. I have included this projected state forest revenue. Each March, I send this out to the districts that receive timber revenue, and it is based on the last 3 pages are projected revenues I received from Department of Forestry, and I have to base my projections on what they send to me. I just received January's. If you look at, I didn't include that. The one I received in March, the 2nd page of your handout shows what I sent to the districts, because that was based on what I had received from Department of Forestry. This is what Department of Forestry projected we were going to get. They projected the county was going to get $6.7 million, and I didn't use it knowing what's going on in the logging, road building, that sort of stuff. I used 4.1. If I take the 2 quarters we received and the 2 final quarters they're projecting we are to receive, that is the top sheet. It shows a dramatic difference from what was sent out. So I've been in contact with the taxing districts over the last few quarters when these new projections have come out, so that they're aware of they budgeted $7 million and you're only getting $5 million. There's a big deficit there.
Can I address timber revenue?
Right ahead.
Thank you. So I addressed the Board of Forestry on Wednesday, and there are some issues, although to me initially they're going to be short-term issues. We had one of our major loggers and road building companies closed down, and that affected timber harvest in the current 22-23 fiscal year. So we normally about this time we're getting 18 million, something like that. Although over the past 3 years, we've been getting higher than that. We've been over 20 million. Not because we've increased harvest, but simply because the log prices have been very good. If you look today, log prices are down considerably, and without all the logging being done on these contracts that have been sold, currently, I think our revenue for 22-23 is gonna be down to just under $15 million. But because these contracts have been let and sold by the department, then they have 3 years, once those contracts are sold, to do the harvest. So I do anticipate that next year, and Sean agrees with me on that next year, our revenue coming in from state forest lands should be in the neighborhood of $21, $22 million a year. So we'll make up the difference from the 22-23 fiscal year. But then if you're projecting into the future, unfortunately, we are not having a lot of luck with the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan, nor the FMP, the Forest Management Plan, and with log prices down. Projecting into the future beyond the 22-23 budget, I'm not exactly sure where it's going to be. So with less harvest potentially coming out of the HCP and the FMP and timber prices down, beyond 22-23, we may be in a bit of a pickle. So I just want to throw that out there for everyone. Not a happy situation, but something that we need to be aware of moving forward. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Commissioner. Another reason for it being down, state and federal grants, we received a lot of money in COVID funds that were used for general fund expenses, and those were one-time funds that we are not receiving anymore. Our personnel services are down 1% compared to the prior 2 quarters last fiscal year. There is scheduled a 5% increase countywide on 1/1/2023. It is expected increase over quarter 1 and quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4 of about $263,000. It's projected to remain under total personnel service budget for fiscal year 22-23. Big reason for that is this last handout you got, which was our FTE count by department. I didn't put page numbers on, but about mid-pack there is a general fund adopted, and it shows budgeted we had 134.38 FTEs, and as of the end of December we only had 120 FTEs. So there is a big gap between where we're budgeted for personnel expenses, salaries, taxes, benefits, and all that, and what we actually have in the buildings working behind the computers or out on the road.
We'll go back, say that again, the budget is 134, right? FTE.
Yep.
And where is it now then? It's 120, so you're down 14 people in the general fund. And what are the prospects that those positions will be filled? Don't know.
I didn't bring my crystal ball up. I would like, I guess one thing we've also been asked, my department has been asked, is to look at efficiencies that we can do without adding another body if that position's been open for 3-4 years. Obviously, it hasn't been filled. We've been getting the work done. Is there something more that software-wise or that we could utilize to not have to fill that? And I believe other departments have been asked the same.
All departments have been asked to consider their efficiencies that would help them do their job with the number of staff that they have, because we've had these vacancies ongoingly over the 2-year period.
Do you have any total or a summary of what is not being done across the county or by department? In other words, you're down a pretty, 14 people. What is it they did that we're not now doing?
I might actually reach out to Matt Kelly, Under Sheriff Kelly, because the majority of those
they're cops.
are in the jail. So I don't know if he wants to say anything.
Bad guys are running amok. So,
Yeah. Our full-time
Well, one of the things that they've done is they've gone to 12-hour shifts in the jail so that they can kind of remove an entire shift in terms of number of people needed to do what they do, so the bad guys aren't running amok, at least in the jail.
Not to, so what does that do to morale and long-term, you know, people working, they're working more than 40 hours then, is what you're saying, right? Or are they just 12, like, 12 till they get 40?
Yeah, they're 4/12s, I believe, and so.
4 on, 3 on, 3 on, 4 off.
It was negotiated through the Teamsters, so they were in agreement. It couldn't be done without a negotiation, so
And
they're in
it is,
agreement.
it's a trial, it's a 2-month trial to see if it's going to work.
Because it gives them 3-day weekends, which, yes, you work those 4 days in a row, those 4/12s, but then you get a 3-day weekend to recover and, you know, have more time with your family. And as opposed to what was happening, which was you were working your 5 days of 8-hour shifts, plus you were picking up extra shifts to cover it. So you were not only working more than the 48 hours, you also were missing your time off. Because you were, whether it was the time you were supposed to be sleeping or the time you were supposed to be with your family, you didn't get it because you were picking up somebody else's vacant shift. So this way it's scheduled in a way to support staff well-being, and still cover those shifts. So
Still-
creative solutions.
It sounds great to me. Is Tillamook County unique, or is this going on elsewhere?
This goes on elsewhere.
Elsewhere.
We were kind of unique in not doing it.
I think when we adopted the budget for the sheriff, at 54 people, that we knew that it wasn't going to be filled. We knew that back in the time, that was part of our budget calculations.
Nationwide, public safety officials, you know, that no one is applying for, wants to be a cop today, for a lot of different reasons, but, and unfortunately, adding pay oftentimes across the nation has proved that that hasn't worked either. So we'll have to wait and see how this is all gonna work out.
So, 5-year average for the general fund was around 115 full-time people. Overtime, for the general fund, departmental-wide, we spent about $210,000 in overtime alone. We only budgeted $235,000, somewhere around there, was only 10%, and we're only 6.5 way through the year. Major contributor to that, and I told him, Sheriff Kelly, I was going to pick on him, was that the sheriff in the jail. Materials and services, major contributors to increase prior quarter 1, quarter 2. Our insurance went up a huge jump this past year, $87,000. Our legal has gone up, fuel and lubrications, heating fuel, criminal equipment, prisoner board, print and advertising, basically everything's just gone up.
Sean, do you have any idea as far as new software that we've purchased and brought on board, and how that affects our efficiencies? And I know that Jeff is gonna be having discussions with every department head, asking, you know, how he can help them become more efficient with certain software. Software is expensive, and in the long run, I think it's gonna be less than hiring all these additional people. So there's a lot of different ways that we can be looking at this.
Yeah, and I know Jeff is meeting with each department head also when, before or after budgets go out, so that they have an idea of what their departments are gonna require. I've been in discussions with Jeff about moving our accounting to the cloud. We did sit through a presentation, and then when we found out you couldn't use the F5 and F6, which are the copy down in the cloud, we were like, no. So we'll still circle back. We're gonna have a discussion, like my team and I are gonna have a discussion next week about that and whether or not we wanna move forward with that or come to the commissioners again and look at whole new software. And spend more money.
No, it's not spending money, it's an investment,
Yeah.
to me, it is.
Yeah, and our software for accounting was so archaic.
We-
It's been improved now, I agree, a lot because of your hard work, Sean, that's the only reason, but it's not the new.
It's my team. I mean, it's taken all of us. You know, we import now, which had never been done before. We've streamlined a lot of stuff. We've had to, because there's only 4 of us. This graph just gives you an idea of budget to actuals for quarter 1, quarter 2 compared to last quarter 1, quarter 2 of last year, of where we're what we've budgeted, for those 6 months, and then where we're at.
Can you explain that a little bit? I'm sorry, I'm looking on what? Very colorful, but give me a
Okay.
little deeper dive. Walk me through this.
Okay,
if you
so
would, please.
the big red line on the left side, that is half of the year's, what's been budgeted for half the year for general fund, July 1 through December 31st.
Okay?
The orange line next to it is what the actual is.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, okay.
And so that just
So
follows
each
along.
quarter is, so then the gray is the other quarter, yellow is the actual, and that one
Yes, and it's,
blue, and then green.
we've got total revenues, personal services, materials and services, and obviously we haven't spent a whole lot on capital outlay. And that is just general fund. And I will be sending all this out so you can zoom in and,
Do more. And with the one where we have revenues higher than budget, that was in quarter one, 2 of 20, so that's reflective of the ARPA money and COVID money and things.
Special revenue fund, all of theirs, obviously, because they have to be balanced, adopted budget beginning fund balance was in line with what has been audited for ending fund balances. Revenue cost was up 13% for special revenue funds from this time last year. Major contributors, they're still, really like the health department, are receiving state and federal grants. Short-term rental licenses are up, TLT's up, building permits, and various other minor increases over prior grade. Personal services are up 2% from the prior year, quarter one, quarter two. They also are receiving the 5% increase countywide scheduled for 1/1/2023. Is expected to increase in quarter 3 and 4 about $202,000 across the board in the special revenue funds. And they all still are projected to remain under total personal service budget for fiscal year 22-23. Materials and services are up 11%. Contracted services, 382. And I don't see, I told Sarah I was gonna pick on her. For DCB buildings, contracted services are up, and that's a big portion of that is due to not having the inspectors, getting them over here. Fuel and lubrication, professional services, asphalt, and paint striping were all up. That data does not include the ARPA fund because it skewed everything if I included those one-time funds that are gonna go away.
Is paint striping, just curiosity, is it contracted to Marion County still?
Yes. And it is not included, that cost is not included in that contracted services, no. It has a separate deal.
I do want to point out that for contracted services, especially for the building officials, that's pretty much been resolved at this point. We've got building officials, inspectors that pretty much up to speed at this point. Would you concur with that?
No, I would agree. We have filled positions and we're still looking for another building inspector, but we have some folks in-house that are training in that direction. And, you know, I think that we've hopefully gotten enough staff on board and with enough training that we can really pull back on those contracted services. The building official and plan review being two of the really big ones that, you know, a year ago, we were sending everything out because we just didn't have folks who could do it. And now we do. We've got solid staff.
What about the numbers of applications for building permits? Is that, they're
There's
up
way
still?
up.
They
There's
continue
still
to be
way
up. I talked to Sarah this morning, she said we are in the typical lull period of the deep winter when, you know, you're not going quite so gangbusters, but it hasn't stopped.
I can tell you at PUD, we get a report every month on the number of line extensions, meaning new, and the list is getting longer and longer and longer every month, much to the dismay of a lot of people. I mean, people are coming here and they're writing checks and building stuff and.
Absolutely, and Sarah said, you know, what you look at is you look at your sanitation for the unincorporated areas to see those start first. And so she said in another month or so, we'll have a pretty clear picture of what our building window will look like based on the number of sanitation permits that have been pulled for the unincorporated areas.
You just drive around the county and you see new building going on everywhere. Manzanita's a prime.
Yeah, we just
I
signed,
mean, it's signed a new plat.
signed a new plat yesterday
Yes.
for more housing. in
Amazing.
Manzanita.
Truly amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
It hasn't slacked off.
It hasn't.
There's no houses really for sale in the secondary market either.
Yeah.
this slide kind of gives you a combined special revenue funds prior year comparison for quarter one, quarter two. So, you know, funds a little up comparatively, but still are expensive. This is our upcoming budget calendar. I needed to confirm with you three. I know.
I received, it looked fine to me, I've already got stuff
Okay.
on my calendar.
Okay, good.
I gotta get mine on there, but yeah,
It'll be virtual and in person, so.
Did you send that out, please?
If I did.
You better-
I think maybe Debbie, did you send those out to the commissioners and myself?
What's that?
The meeting invites for the workshops in April?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I think so.
I'll look.
I think I
I
did.
don't think I got invites, but I got your list.
Okay, if you have any conflicts, just let me know. I'll send out the invites. I may have screwed that up.
Would you mind sending it again?
Any questions or discussions? Let's see if this works.
Oh, that's cute. Love it.
Pretty high
Sean, you
tech.
had too much fun with that, didn't you?
This was a whole new piece of software.
It's almost like Chris's.
Definitely I've been sitting down there for this again.
How come they get coffee?
Yeah.
Looking for a bottle of water.
Aw.
Well, what are your numbers, 1, 2, and 3 concerns for this fiscal year?
Timber revenue, one, retaining employees, retaining knowledgeable employees that want to stay and not just be here for a year or two and out the door. You put that time and training into them, and it'd be really nice if they stuck around. My third, boy. What my third would be.
What's the unfunded liability of the retirement now with the stock market going the wrong way?
Last numbers I had, it was 18.7, 19, I think.
That was from a year ago, or a year and a half ago in the good year. It had gone from 22 down to 19. So we expect the reality check will come in this year's audit as we get it. And it should be adjusted. We expect it will be back up over 20.
I assume you guys did exit interviews for people. Do you have any idea why you get such a big turnover?
That was one part of the HR department I stayed out of, so I don't know, and that would be a
Just a
question.
suggestion. Every time somebody leaves, I ask them, send them down, say why.
I've been talking
See
about
if
that
there's
for a
any-
long time too.
Any continuity to it.
I understand we do exit interviews with those who are willing.
Yes.
That we do
Can't
ask them
demand.
if we can do it, and maybe Mary Faith has some more insight on that. It's been her department.
I understand the saying, that we do.
And there are a myriad of reasons why, as you would expect. One person is an individual. So, myriad of reasons.
I just read it, so we can address.
Well,
There isn't anything you can address.
Anecdotally, in a number of cases that I know of, people just leave for better paying jobs because of the private sector, it's hard for us to compete with the private sector.
It's basic.
Yeah.
Even if you divided it financial and other, then you want A or B, financial,
Good
get more
point.
money somewhere, or other, there could be dozens of reasons.
Mhm.
There's just more jobs than there are people, and everywhere.
Yeah.
True.
More jobs than people. And there's no way we can keep up with larger communities and private sector in so many ways. So, and that's just the reality of government. So, we have some challenges.
The lack of housing too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's an impact for, people accept a job, come here, poke around and say sorry, which is the same thing everyone's seeing, and that's private industry and government.
Yeah, we have a number of examples of that, of people just not being able to find housing, or, we recently lost somebody who apparently liked her job and everyone liked her, and she came here with temporary housing and couldn't find permanent housing, so she went to another community.
Well, what other questions do we have? We've got the right people in the room to ask.
Ask away.
So let's go back to the timber. I know you and Commissioner Yamamoto, I really have a pretty good handle on that. What is your comfort level, 60%, 80%? I mean, you never know, but as pointed out, they have a 3-year window, I understand that, but, and I don't follow timber prices quite as closely as some, but, is it gonna get worse before it gets better, or what do you think?
I think next year it will be worse. It'll be lower than the 4.1 that we budgeted for this year. And I think some departments are gonna have to make some hard choices because of that in the general fund. We do have the revenue stabilization. So there is some funds to offset that. But if it's only for a year and they're just holding funds for an open position that hasn't been filled in 5 years, I think it's time to remove that position and look at other means.
So they're budgeting for these positions, but they consistently just stay open, right?
Correct.
Because consistently at the end of the year, over the last 2 years, 3 years, we've had somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million left at the end of the year that we've been able to put into that retirement fund and funded liability, and some of that into this revenue stabilization fund. So there's something in how we're budgeting and how we're spending that is coming out in a positive, right? I mean, at the end of the year, there's money left, but it's difficult to go into a year saying everybody needs to cut something and coming out at the end of the year with revenue left, right? So I think that refinement of the budget is a really important place for us to begin to really determine what it's gonna cost each department to do what they do, rather than blanketing across all departments, you must take a X% cut, or, the things that have happened, I think, in the past. We need to really dig in and do the refinement so we can determine, where those cuts really need to come from, and vacant positions that we can't fill is certainly a great place to do it, as opposed to asking a department that, let's say, community development, that is running gangbusters on development permits, to say, I'm sorry, to be equal, you have to cut someone, when they're cutting a real person and someone else is cutting a vacant slot and leaving 3 or 4 vacant slots intact. And I think we just have to get more granular in our view of departments and how they do what they do, which is part of that function of sitting down, not just with department heads in this budget hearing, but ahead of that, having department heads sit with their liaison and Sean and really dig a little bit into what's going on in their department, where they have unspent revenues in prior years, those kinds of things.
So again, when we have a revenue stabilization fund, which is great that we have it, so the rest of this fiscal year, January through June, when our timber revenue is going to be down considerably, we don't want to be in a position where we're talking about laying people off, because the next fiscal year, 23-24, we're going to have that money made up. At the same time, once we get to the budget for 23-24, we don't want to say, hey, look at all this revenue we've got coming in. We need to figure out how we're going to spend it, because if the year after that is where I really see a problem coming in, unless we get some major changes from the Department of Forestry and or the Board of Forestry, I think things could be more difficult. So having those looking out to the future, even our department heads, they can't say, hey, 23-24, look at the revenue projections, we're doing really well. We need to do things that we normally wouldn't do. Because it's after that we're going to possibly be in a bit of a pickle.
What would the short-term rental tax look like for 6 months against your budget?
It hasn't slowed down much.
It stayed strong.
Yeah.
The fee for housing, is that, how much is that?
The fee for housing?
The short-term
Short-term
operator
rental.
license fee, it didn't
Oh.
generate
License fee.
450,000, I think,
Yeah.
roughly.
Let me see if I can look
That-
up. Not 450,000.
Okay, that's
Because we
close.
awarded 710.
Yeah.
And that was a combination of the license fees that we had collected and the ARPA funding that we had put in there to seed the pot. So I think it was somewhere around 450. Because that also helps, that covers the housing coordinator position comes out of that as well. So it doesn't all immediately go back out to contractors. I mean, it's a good chunk of money that definitely, there's 87 units of housing that are, in the pipeline being supported by those funds.
Right, well, that's
which was the goal.
That was the goal. I was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
And the parking fees, how are the parking fees do?
They're not they're not as robust as what was anticipated by that first
Well,
contractor.
no, he messed up, but still.
But above the 138,000 or whatever we got out of the first year, I mean, it is increasing.
When the original estimate was around 800,000.
Yeah.
And that's not even.
Not even
that's
close.
really
Not even
right
close.
now.
No.
Have you hit a 500,000? You've been at it now for 2 years, right? We're in the second cycle.
It's been a year and a half. 2 years will be end of March.
Yeah, second, we went through the second summer, so
I'm trying to open that so I can see. Get it open.
Jeff?
So in order to hit those types of numbers, to me, we're gonna need real enforcement capabilities.
Yeah.
That's where we're running into an issue.
Yeah. It's not bad.
We've tried to hire a parking ambassador, a parking enforcement officer, a parking person to stand in the parking lot and guilt trip people into paying. And we've tried for 2 years straight and failed all those recruitments.
you need a badge and a gun.
And
We need
the
a
sheriff's
body.
office is short staffed, so they can't do parking.
We do, we have a part-time, I don't know if she's still working or she was just working the peak time. We have a
Carla.
Part-time,
Carla.
parking ambassador.
I still think you need to do it like they do in Portland and Washington DC, where when you get your you pay for your parking permit and they put your license plate in the database and the car drives through, and if you're not in that database, you automatically get a ticket. Because they got the camera, they get all the license plate numbers and they can match it up and bang, you got a ticket.
There you go, Jeff, say we got
Technology.
technology.
I might know that from personal experience.
So what other questions? It sounds like the county is solvent and guardedly optimistic on certain things, and certain other things are going the wrong way, like bringing on sworn officers and so on. That's an uphill one, and it's not unique, as we've heard. So you gave us your two biggest worries. Did you ever think of a third? So you only have two things to worry about.
Yeah.
No, there's lots to worry
I
about.
think just the increasing cost of everything. I mean, we are not immune to inflation, so I think that would be the other piece that I would look at and say, lubricants and fuels was one of those, and, there's a number of things that Sean brought up in there that are related to just the increase in the cost of everything that we can't do without. We can't do our business without those pieces, those supplies and materials, so, I think that does hit us as well.
Asphalt is way up.
Yeah.
Paint.
Even though petroleum is coming down in a way, but everything I've heard is this is a fairly minor dip and it'll go back up again in the spring, but who knows? Do you have any idea the impact of our most recent storm? Was that significant?
Randy had sent out an email.
I think it was 1.3 million in damage
Damages.
across the county, across what they considered all three events, because there was an ice event, a wind event, a flood event, according to FEMA. So we put all that together, I think it was 1.3.
1.339, and that was including the city of Tillamook, city of Manzanita, and PUD.
Right.
What's the threshold to get FEMA to write a check?
Randy said something about 6 million across the state. So I think the question comes into how do we roll into everyone else's expenses? Maybe you know where I think
I
that.
forget the number, but I don't think that's big enough.
Yeah.
We had that big tornado in Manzanita.
Yeah.
It wasn't big enough.
Wasn't big enough.
Wasn't big enough.
No.
Well, they're gonna try, so.
How is the county going to handle ARPA money coming in now, like the 3 million I heard about that will go into internet service with broadband, but 3 million some other. I got that in writing. So will that come through a supplemental budget? And I don't know what the total is, but that was obviously not anticipated at the time we did the budget. So
Right.
what's the process?
Yeah, that'll be in a supplemental budget, because it's raising it more than 10%.
Yeah.
And we have a radio fund set up, and I'm assuming, Rachel, yes or no, that's where the 2 million is going to go?
Probably.
Yes, that's where I would place it.
Okay. I'm not positive about the 3 million for the fiber network, so I'll have to figure out where that goes and.
That goes directly to Tillamook Lightwave, I believe.
Okay,
Open to discussion, I'm sure.
Yeah, although we don't have an agreement with Tillamook Lightwave to give them a couple $1 million at this point, but we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll get to it, believe me.
I'm sure we will.
So yes, in the coming months, you'll have a supplemental budget.
Do you know how much the total is in the omnibus bill? I printed all that stuff out, but I got dizzy reading it all.
So in Tillamook County, actually, Tillamook County did quite well.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. It's a fairly large 7-figure number, isn't it?
Tillamook, 7-figure, I don't, so Tillamook County itself got 5, Reinhardt Clinic got 3, and there were some other ones, not really large ones, but, so I think we did maybe $10 million in the omnibus appropriations bill. And for Tillamook County, it's not bad.
625,000 to the estuary partnerships,
TEP.
330,000 to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And that's all that's going up at the moment.
And when does that cash actually arrive in this fiscal period?
I have not read the omnibus yet. I was too busy trying to put stuff together.
We're trying to figure that out, and how quickly it has to be spent. Rachel, do you have any idea there?
All I know is that email where I was notified that we received the funding from Betsy Emery from Merkley's office is that it would take months.
For us to get
So,
it?
yeah, so we might not even be receiving the money this fiscal year because we'll have to work through the agreements. I have no idea how long we'll have to spend it or what strings might be tied or any of that yet. But we are going to start having conversations, as I alluded in my email to you, Doug, about prepping for that. So if there is a tight timeline, we can absolutely get it spent. So we'll be talking sooner than later about how to spend the dollars.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you. I'm just wondering if it would be part of the supplemental in this year or comes up in the fiscal next year. So,
When I
Looks
send
like
out
a
the
meeting.
meeting notice, I'll let you know.
okay. All right, what other questions do we have for staff?
So if we were to lose the timber revenue, how much would we need in property taxes? What would the increase be? Is that 4 million would be, what,
Well,
about 70
that's-
cents
4 million to us.
to us?
Yeah.
But to
But
the
you're
school
actually
districts-
losing far greater than 4 million
Yeah, but the school districts, that
theoretically.
theoretically
by the
doesn't, it
state.
goes to every school district in the state. It doesn't go just to Tillamook school districts.
My conversations with Paul Robach, if timber revenue should go away, and school equalization were to replace it, backfill it, it would not reach the levels that they are at today. They would still have to cut back quite a bit. And so I'm sure Tillamook would be in the same position.
But for the county, how much would we need to, probably about 70 cents a thousand, 80 cents a thousand?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that. So I think we need to start planning ahead over the next 4 to 5 years is to, at least to get the residents realizing how much timber revenue is helping us and what it's saving them in property taxes. Because if not,
Not a bad idea.
That budget roadshow I've been talking about, Sean, I've been talking to Sean for my 2 years about doing a budget roadshow. She's put me off so far, but maybe we'll get it this year. Because I do, I
just
mean,
give her another staff person.
well, it's part of, but it was part of why we were talking about software
Yeah.
as well, is that there's software out there, ClearGov and
ClearGov, OpenGov, there's
a number of them where you can turn your very complicated budget into understandable, readable graphs and charts. And we do need to get out and be talking with our community about our budget and the fact that we are not gonna make it long-term without additional revenue. And we have a number of levies that, are currently active and others that are coming potentially. We expect to have a road bond coming potentially in the future, all of these things. So we're looking at putting together a strategic plan for the county. One of the pieces that we're looking at is engaging with a longer-term financial planning agency to help us look at what we have, what we expect to have coming, and really try to put together a plan that then gives us what we need for that financial roadshow to begin to find the way to talk to our community about the services that they value and what they cost and how we currently pay for them, timber and tax. And just really kind of get everybody into that conversation with some knowledge. Because it's going to take that going forward unless the state does something miraculous and, helps us solve this from an outside perspective, which I don't see coming. We have a lot of work to do locally because we are going to have to tighten down what we do, and we're going to have to ask for more revenue from those who receive the services.
It's going to be, it doesn't take a crystal ball to see that over the next 20 years with the state government we've got, the timber harvests are not going to go up. They're going to continue to decline until the point where all our trees are absorbing carbon, which is unfortunate and totally backwards as far as I'm concerned. But that's, when Washington County comes in and says that should all be one big park to sequester carbon, I'm thinking, well, Washington County, maybe you ought to close Nike down where they're bringing all that pollution into Portland and putting all their carbon in the air, so it kind of equalizes out.
They can pay us and pay us to develop new industry to help all of those folks whose jobs would go away. There's a lot of investment that it would take to replace this particular industry and this revenue stream for Tillamook County. And if the state or others feel that it needs to go away, then there's a lot of investment that we'll be looking forward to them making in our communities, because it isn't just the timber revenue as we've talked about often. It is the multitude of the many people in our communities that would work in this. So yeah, it's complicated.
If I could ask Doug to make one announcement, if we can break in really quick. Jody Wilson, our HR director, is asking if you could, as the chair, let everybody that's online know that they will be continuing in this meeting. If you choose to reconvene into the
Compensation Committee?
Yes.
Yes, that was our original plan, as I said at the start. When we're done with this meeting, and I think we're reaching a conclusion here, then we will reconvene the Compensation Committee. Now, we may continue on, or we may simply adjourn to another date, depending on the latest word from legal counsel, because we had an improper notice, and the question is, can we correct that? Can we correct it in arrears? Is that the right type of notice that needs to be given? In other words, is Compensation Committee subject to open meeting laws? And do we know if Bill Sargent is available now? He was supposed to get back to us within 45 minutes or so, which would be now.
I've been sitting here for 40. I have no idea.
Okay.
Rachel, have you heard back from him?
I have talked to him, not about an announcement that would be at the meeting though about this topic, but we generally agree, and it's been past practice that those meetings have not been executive session. So for what that's worth, I don't know how you want to correct it going forward.
So Rachel, even though they have not been executive session, have they been publicly noticed?
Yes.
Oh, yes, they've always been publicly noticed.
Okay.
With including phone numbers or Zoom links or Teams links or whatever. Is that accurate then? 'Cause I don't remember that we've ever had anybody at one of these meetings other than the three of us and staff.
I think this may be the effect of the new modern technology. It was probably noticed in the newspaper as a public meeting, but
Yes.
probably nobody came.
Yes.
And so we all assumed, myself included as I sat on that committee, that it was not a public meeting. But in fact, it is a public meeting, and now that technology makes it easier for people to attend, we are seeing a desire for people to attend.
Yes, I would agree, Commissioner. I think you're absolutely right. Well, why don't we do this? Let me ask, is there any additional subjects or matters or conversation for the budget committee as a whole? We've got our budget officer here, we've got the county commissioners. Anything that we need to know, talk about, review, ask? Okay, well, hearing that, then I will adjourn this meeting of the budget committee at 3:02. Okay, now, we'll come back into session on the budget, the compensation committee of the budget committee. And can we put our person back on your HR lady?
I'm reaching out to her right now, and
So if Bill's not available, you might want to give Joel a call.
Yeah, because I think we're gonna have to adjourn.
Bill,
Well,
this is Rachel.
I'm inclined to simply adjourn the meeting because of the lack of clarity on the procedures and the numbers and whatever, and republish and convene again, and I guess go over the same ground, and we could do it remotely, we could do it here, we could, whatever. In other words, you know, play it safe. The last thing any of us wants is somebody to say, I couldn't get in touch with the people when I hoped to, and that's bad, that's not right.
I think that's.
So Rachel had additional information, I think,
Ra-
regarding her
Rachel, go-
conversation with Bill, so perhaps
Rachel,
that
go
would be
ahead.
helpful.
I was just gonna add that Bill's working right now. We've been corresponding on some other matters if you wanted him to call in now. I think he could be available. I just don't think he was specifically asked, to my knowledge, to be available for this meeting.
So
But I could call him if you'd like and have him call in, if you think that's appropriate.
why don't you do that, since he's local, and maybe we could take that up in the next 4 or 5 minutes. We'll just-
Okay, let me-
We'll recess this meeting then of the compensation committee until you get him one way or another. And if he's
Okay.
not available, then we'll adjourn, and I think maybe we're gonna push it forward anyway, but let's get him on.
and Jody said she was
Okay,
on.
we'll do.
Thank you.
Okay, so I can leave, we can leave, we should leave.
Well, it's a public meeting, we can
Well,
listen
we
if we
could.
want.
But they're discussing,
But it's a public meeting, which means we could listen if we wanted. I mean, I think that's my point, as to why it's weird that it's a public meeting. Well, I
Yeah,
agree.
that's my, I would totally agree with that.
Because then, as elected officials,
I've never been able to sit in on
No,
a
well,
compensation
well,
committee.
you could have
Well,
used it.
I guess.
Okay, also, but consider this, that when.
And also, the room is not muted. I don't know if that matters.
No, I mean, we're just discussing the weirdness of.
We are
Have
in
we
recess, so
adjourned?
we should cut the audio.
Okay, so
We're in recess.